All right, we're joined by American Top Team owner Dan Lambert. Dan, how's it going?
It's going all right. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Let's just start off with man of the past pay-per-view, Jorge Masvidal. When Gilbert Burns fell out, did you think Masvidal would be stepping in?
Actually, I found out Gilbert dropped out because Masvidal called me at like 1 o'clock in the morning and said, "Hey, I'll take that fight. Let's make some calls."
And then once that happened, like they were obviously that was Masvidal's fight to get the first time, and they couldn't come to agreement on the pay. Did you think the UFC would come around to what he wanted?
I didn't want him to. I tried talking him out of it when he called me and said that. I'm like, dude, that's like less than a week from today in Abu Dhabi, like halfway around the world. Are you out of your mind? And he said, no, I'm taking that fight. It's going to happen. And I'm like, all right, man. Well, I'll make a call and let them know you want it to happen and tell them to call your guys and start working on it. But, I wasn't a big fan of that fight happening on that kind of notice. There's a big difference between a guy who's around the gym and a guy who's in the gym in a training camp. But, I think George did pretty damn well in that fight. Showed he's got a lot of tools. And obviously it looks like the show was a huge success. So long term, it's probably going to work out pretty well for him.
Was part of the game plan for Jorge was to just try to get Usman out early because the gas tank, like he even admitted after, he didn't think the gas tank could go 5 rounds.
Yeah, I think most people close to George thought he was going to have to get the job done inside of a couple of rounds.
And he's been training with Beau Nicholas. He going to be a guy that's going to be an American Top Team once he finishes his college career?
Yeah, well, Beau's college career is done.
Or he's got the Olympics, right?
Right, he's training for the Olympics, but we're opening an ATT gym up at College Station, and Beau's going to be based out of there. We're going to send up a couple of high-level coaches. The gym's plans are being constructed, drawn up right now. Hopefully the construction's going to be done beginning of next year, and we're gonna have an ATT affiliate up there, and we're going to hopefully interact a lot with the college program they've got up there, and a lot of the guys that come over to David Taylor's wrestling club after they graduate college to get ready for international competitions and the Olympics, and we think it's going to be a crazy pipeline of talent.
How important was Beau in this little small camp for Jorge?
I mean, the small camp, I don't call it a camp. I mean, you find out on like Saturday morning, you're fighting the following week in Abu Dhabi. I mean, I don't even think they had the deal done till Sunday or late Sunday or Monday or whatever it was. So, I mean, there was no camp. Beau was down, the month prior for a couple of weeks because at one point we thought we were going to start getting ready and that fight could happen. So he was down for a little while and brought a couple of the other guys from Penn State down. And, but that was just more of a, hey man, we're doing this new gym. Why don't you come down and start wrestling a little bit and meeting everybody and, start the integration process. And while you're here, get some work in with Masvidal, because at some point in the future, we're looking for a title fight. So, Beau would be an amazing asset on a full camp for George for a fight against Usman, and I think George's wrestling is underrated. I think at one point during the fight, I think they said he had stuffed like 7 of 8 takedowns, and the one that he didn't stuff was, off of a kick that got caught in the first round. So I think George's wrestling is really underrated. He's got really good takedown defense. He's really good up against the fence or the wall, and I think that will behoove him pretty well if he ever gets that rematch.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is a lot of people were saying, oh, Masvidal's just going to get mauled. Usman's going to take him down over and over again. Do you think there is a lot of disrespect for Masvidal's ground game? Everyone kind of just thinks, oh, he's this boxer. He can't do anything on the ground.
I just people haven't really seen it. They haven't really seen him in there with someone who, was at Usman's level and with that type of strategy that Usman was going to bring. George is not an easy guy to take down, and George has some really good hips. If you do get him down, he's hard to hold down. A big chunk of that fight was up against the cage, and I don't think that was a result of George not being able to get off the cage. I just think at that point in the fight, George just didn't have any gas left in the tank and didn't really have any legs under him. So, what's the point of fighting hard to get the break when there's really nothing you can do with it anyway because you're sapped out. So I think George just accepted the position against the fence for a large portion of that fight because, not because he couldn't get off, just because he didn't really have any tools left if he did get off.
How different do you think that fight is with Jorge having a full camp?
I think it'd be a very different fight. I think it'd be a very different fight. I don't think Usman bullies him around. I don't think Usman gets him down very often. I don't think he holds him down very often. He's gonna have to win that fight standing, I think, for a significant portion. And that's no small task against George.
Say Jorge comes up to you in the gym and says, Dan, whatever you want me to do next, I'll do. Like, what would you advise him to do? Because there's a lot of options. He could try to get that Usman rematch. He could fight like a Conor, make that a big fight. The Diaz rematch is there. Like, what would you want him to do next?
I mean, you really don't have a say in those things. It's what's going on with the UFC. And, George probably has a much better seat at the table now and dictating what happens going forward now that he's proven himself to be a pretty substantial draw. If I had my druthers, I always want my guys to make as much money as possible. And Conor McGregor is the biggest fight in the world for anybody. So if I had my druthers, that would be his next fight. If George had his, he'd probably go for a rematch with Usman, because right now the belt's probably more important to him than the money, because he just got a really nice payday.
We saw the reported pay-per-view numbers north of 1.3 million buys. Like, do you think Conor Masvidal would be the biggest fight in UFC history?
It would be up there. It would probably, if not the biggest, it'd probably be the second to Khabib and Conor. If George were defending the title against Conor, could you imagine if George had won that, or if George gets a rematch and wins it, and then he puts both belts up against the Conor? Yeah, I think that would by far be the biggest fight in UFC history. But George is a draw. George is legit. People want to see George. People are buying into George's story, and obviously Conor's Conor. So yeah, that's a big money fight.
Is it weird for you where Jorge's been doing this for 17 years, something like that, and he's just becoming this massive star in years 16 and 17? No other pro sports do you see someone become their massive star so late in their career.
It's by far the craziest thing I've ever seen in the 20-plus years we've been doing this. He calls it the resurrection. I don't have a better word for it. I mean, I've seen that guy have ups. I've seen him have downs, and to put it all together and go on this run is just unbelievable. I have no words for it.
And then let's talk Amanda Nunes defending the featherweight belt at UFC 250, and then she said she doesn't know if she's going to continue. Is she in the gym training, or is she taking time, just spending time with her family?
Amanda does a lot of the family stuff after fights. So, she came to the gym right after the fight, a little celebration with everybody, talking to everybody. But, she hasn't been back training since. They're getting ready to have a baby, so they're getting a lot of stuff together back at home anyway. But she lives right down the street, and I spoke with her the other day. She's good, and when something comes around, she'll start training sooner or later, probably sooner rather than later, because people just get bored getting home. Right after a fight, everybody's like, man, the last thing I want to do is go back to the gym right now. I want time to, relax. But, then you get that time to relax. You're like, shit, this is kind of boring. I want to go back to the gym. So, she'll get back in there and just have some fun, break a sweat, stay in shape, and then figure out what's coming up. They're going to have a baby later this year. Probably, I think it's October and maybe September. And after that, she'll get a little acclimation process for that. But I think those juices will start flowing, and she'll want to get in soon after that.
Would you be surprised if she doesn't fight again?
Yeah, I'd be really surprised. I mean, you spend your whole life busting your ass and working so hard to get to the point where she is right now, where you can make some really good money, and to do all that work to get there and only reap the benefits for a couple of fights, it doesn't really make the most sense. And it's, she's married now, she's having a kid, and she's in a position to go on a run now to take care of herself and her family for the rest of her life, and take care of her kid and take care of her kids' kids. Yeah, I would be surprised if she didn't take advantage of that.
What do you think is next for her? Do you think she drops back down to 35 and defends that belt, or do you think she likes staying at 45?
I think if she had her druthers, she'd stay at 45, just because, nobody likes cutting weight. The 35 division certainly deeper than the 45 division is. I would guess that she would probably flip-flop, do a fight at 35, then do a fight at 45, then do a fight at 35, then do a fight at 45. You probably couldn't do that as a champ in the men's divisions, because they're all so deep and so stacked, and they probably couldn't put those divisions on hold, and only have a champ defend the title once a year or so. But I think they could do that in the female divisions because there's not a lot of talent at 45, not, at least not under contract, and it'll take a while to build a contender, and then they got to sort through the contenders at 35, and maybe by the time she fights in that division every other fight, they would have had somebody primed and ready to go.
Where do you rank her? She's obviously clear-cut the best women's fighter of all time. Where do you rank her as all-time GOAT, male or female? She's the only UFC fighter to defend both belts. Her legacy speaks for itself, beating Cyborg, Rousey, Tate, Holm, all former champions. Like, where do you put her in that conversation?
It's not only just beating those names that you just threw out there, but it's how she beat them. I mean, Ronda and Cyborg didn't go a minute. Neither one of them. Misha, she could be a Hall of Famer. She didn't get out of that first round. Holly didn't get out of the first round. I mean, she's not just beating the best of the best. She's starching them. So yeah, there's no question she's the GOAT female, and I put her in the top 5 fighters of all time. I put her in the same conversation with the GSPs and the Anderson Silvas of the world. She's that good.
And another female fighter we saw is Joanna. She obviously had that legendary fight with Weili Zhang earlier this year. What were your takeaways from that fight? Because I was watching that thing and I'm like, after the second round, I'm like, they can't keep this pace up to the third. And after the third, I'm like, they can't keep this pace up in the fourth. Like, what were your thoughts on that fight?
I was clearly the best female fight of all time, but I think it goes above and beyond that. It was just an amazing fight, period. It was a great fight, really competitive fight. I think if you go back and watch it, if she didn't have that swelling in that 5th round, I think judges were giving more credit to the champ for the shots she was landing in that 5th round just because of the damage Joanna was showing. I thought Joanna won that 5th round, which was the deciding round of the fight. And I think if she wasn't showing the damage, they might not have scored the round the way they did. But it was a great fight, and I think everybody wants to see it again. I know Rose is coming off an impressive performance, and I think the UFC is leaning in the direction of giving her the next shot. So I think Joanna's just going to sit back and see what happens. I don't think a lot makes sense for Joanna other than another fight for the title.
Yeah, she's in this weird spot where she's beaten most of the top-ranked girls at strawweight. So would you be surprised if she doesn't fight again until she gets another title shot?
I'd be surprised if she did fight again other than a title shot. I don't know of another fight that makes sense.
What about her going up to 125? Because we saw her fight for Shevchenko, and there's a lot of new fresh matchups there. Do you think she's focused on 115?
I think Joanna wants to be a champion. She's been there, done that, been around a long time, accomplished so much. She's got a lot of other stuff going on in her life from a financial standpoint outside of the cage. So I really think the only thing that makes sense to bring her back to a fight is a title fight, and she's not getting that title fight at 125. I mean, people already saw that. I don't think anybody's clamoring to see that fight again. And she made the weight. She didn't have a problem with her weight cut for the last fight. So I think that's the weight class for her. And if she comes back, I think that's what you'll see, a title fight for her in that weight class. And if not, I think she'll just do what she's doing.
I just want to touch on a few other things. Is Dustin Poirier obviously had that incredible fight with Dan Hooker. What do you think should be next for him? A lot of people are throwing out Tony Ferguson. I think that'd be a wild fight.
I mean, I'd pay money to see Dustin fight anybody. I'd pay money to see Tony fight anybody. I'm not sure that fight makes the most sense in the world with Tony coming off a loss and Dustin coming off such a big win. Dustin is a guy that it seems like every fight he has is an incredible fight like that. So there's a lot of good matchups for him and exciting fan-friendly fights for him. But I think Dustin, is probably looking to see what happens with Khabib and Gaethje. And if Gaethje were to win that fight, I mean, who would make more sense than Dustin after having, taken Gaethje out and coming off a big win like that? Again, Conor's name's got to be thrown in there because it's the Conor effect. Whatever Conor wants to do, Conor's going to do. So, I could see Conor getting the winner of Gaethje and Khabib. I could see Dustin immediately fighting Gaethje if Gaethje were to win that fight. I don't know if Dustin and Khabib is a fight that the UFC is interested in running right back. Maybe something has to happen in the meantime. So I don't really know what to expect for Dustin's next fight. I think he's sitting back and just going to wait and see what happens with that fight. I know Dustin wants a title fight more than he wants anything. You know, I've even heard Dustin's name linked to Conor again. So I don't know. I mean, he wants to make money and he wants to win a title. So hopefully one of those two things will be thrown at him.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is obviously Dustin and Conor fought a couple years ago at featherweight. Conor got an early knockout, but how much different do you think that fight would be at lightweight and how they're fighting right now?
Dustin's a completely different fighter at 55 than he was at 45. I mean, your body can only take so much as far as, you know, weight cutting leading up to a fight. And Dustin didn't just cut weight when it in the lead up to a fight. I mean, Dustin had to live a lifestyle to make 145 where he's like fucking cutting almonds in half between camps. You know, it was just so hard on his body, and that makes it tough. And I think he's much healthier. I think he's stronger at 55, and I think he takes a punch a lot better at 55 than he does at 45. So yeah, Dustin's a whole different animal at that weight class. So I think the fight would have to be different.
And at ATT, we've seen a couple people test positive, and that's something that's going around the entire world. Is there anything you can do as a gym to try to like prevent it, or is it just you guys really have no control over it?
Well, there's nothing we can do to stop it. There's nothing, you know, anybody can do to stop it right now. They will figure that out. But we've gotten better as time has gone on. We do a lot of things at our gym to keep it as safe as possible. You know, nobody gets in our gym without having a temperature check. We had 80 people tested at our gym last week. Turns out I don't really have a ton of faith in the particular test that they were using. So I've got a couple of proposals right now coming in on a better test. And my goal is to have everybody at the gym tested once a week. I'm actually looking to buy the machine that reads the swab results so I can get the swab test done and get the results the same day. We've probably had 40 fighters tested, 40 fighters and coaches tested down at the county facility that does the public testing, but it takes so long to get the results and people are sitting out so long. We make sure that anybody in the gym that has any symptoms whatsoever stays out of the gym until they're cleared with the test. You know, we do everything we can to make it as safe as possible, but you're going to have people get sick. You know, when you got that many people, you're going to have people get sick. And I'm not even sure I believe the results of a lot of the tests. I mean, Mike Brown and Pedro Munoz tested positive on a Sunday out in Las Vegas before the trip to Abu Dhabi, got in a car on Monday, drove back, got home Wednesday, Thursday morning, had them both swabbed, and they both came back negative. So just had their blood drawn Monday morning and sent to a lab to do a third test and should have those results today. So if I had to guess, neither of those guys even had it. It was a false positive. So it's just such a new virus that nobody really knows exactly what to do to combat it or how it acts and how reliable all these tests are. I mean, you saw the thing with Figueiredo, you know, testing positive and then testing negative, and now he's over there, and who knows if he's going to test positive or negative now that he's over there. Nobody even knows if that fight's going to happen this weekend. So there's a lot of uncertainty out there, but you just do whatever you can given the science of the day.
And have you had to limit like how many people are in the gym, like only making it pro fighters, or are you still able to hold some classes?
Oh no, we've closed to the public since before there was a local shutdown, and we have not reopened to the public. And I don't know when we reopen to the public. I'm going to wait until it's very, very safe, and I'm very comfortable that it is safe to bring the public back. And then I'm probably going to wait another month or two after that and let everybody else do it and see how that works. We're only open to the public. We decided to get rid of our after school program permanently. I think we just sold the 5 vans we have that pick kids up from school and bring them over to the gym, just because it just brings so much traffic into the gym. And it's not only the kids that are coming there, but it's the counselors, and then it's their parents and their brothers and sisters coming to pick them up. And it's just too much extra traffic into the gym. So we're not even going to start that back up if and when we do reopen our regular public classes. Right now it's pros only. We try to spread the classes out, keep as few people there as possible, do our temperature checks, make sure people are getting tested, and hope for the best.
And just last thing, I know, are you still co-managing Colby even though he's not at the gym?
No.
Have you talked to him since then, or is that or no?
I have not talked to Colby for probably a couple of months. You know, once he made the announcement that he was going to leave, I haven't spoken to him. I'm sure I will. I've got no ill will towards Colby. I think he made the right decision for him and his career in going to do his own thing. You know, Colby did a lot of his own thing even when he was there anyway. So I think it worked out the right way.
And just last thing, that no trash talking policy you implemented back then, is that still a fact? Is that still a rule in ATT?
I guess it's still a rule. It's kind of a rule that you don't really need without Colby being there, because never really had that problem with anybody. And we've had lots of people fight each other and never had that become an issue. But it became an issue. You know, Colby's a polarizing figure, and he's got a unique personality and a unique marketing approach, and it made life a little difficult in a big gym structure. I think it's worked for Colby. I mean, he's made a lot more money since he developed that character and gotten way farther in his career than he would have otherwise. I just don't know if he needed that character inside our gym. You know, personally, I think he should have stuck to shitting on Brazil and supporting Donald Trump, and probably kept it at that, and it would have worked out a lot better for us. But you know, he's his own man. He's made his own decisions, and I think it's working for him. And I think he probably wouldn't change anything if he could go back and do it all over.
Just a quick one is, would you like to see Covington fight Masvidal, or would you not want that to happen just because of your relationships with both them?
I want George to make the most money George can make. I want Colby to make the most money Colby can make. I'd like George to win a title. Yeah, I'm not clamoring to see that fight. At one point, I told both of them I hope they go and they do fight and beat the shit out of each other, just because I was getting so sick of what was going on. But yeah, I don't like seeing guys that I'm friends with or close with, you know, or guys that are at our gym fighting each other. I hate it. It's kind of a no-win situation for us. Sometimes it's unavoidable because it's either for a title or it's for a #1 shot. Sometimes it's unavoidable just because the guys want to do it. You know, JDS, and he's fighting Jairzinho coming up, and that wasn't a you know, take it or leave it offer where it was the only fight available for either guy. But, you know, they wanted it. They both liked it. They both liked the fight. They thought it was a high-profile fight that would do good things for them. I'm not going to tell two guys that can't fight if they don't want to. You know, it makes it a little difficult at the gym at times, you know, for some guys. Not for those two. They don't give a shit. JDS said, hey, you want to spar while leading up to the fight, which I thought was kind of ridiculous. Didn't happen. But, you know, some guys deal with it differently. But, you know, as a rule, I don't like seeing our guys fight each other.
All right, well, Dan, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah, have a good one.